Okay, it should be the meeting.
Yes.
And are we here?
Live streamed.
Okay. Oh, we did it. Great. Am I muted? No. Okay, great. Fantastic. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hi. So this is Annalisa with Journey to the Goddess TV, where I regenerate ancient feminine wisdom for modern women. Today, I'm with the lovely, fabulous Maia Wilde. Hi, Maia.
You said lovely, and I was like, that's not a word I normally feel is addressed. I use I do it. Did you get it back? I was like, ooh, I'm hearing a weird feedback, by the way.
I know, it always does that, so I've muted that.
Okay.
Here. So let me give you your official introduction to the public here. So Miss Maia Wilde hosts the acclaimed podcast, Dirt Road Less Traveled, and is a speaker, writer, and self-realization and self-actualization expert. She's known as a soul medium, love that, and the deep coach, whose mission is to connect people to their true self, discover their life's work, and stop living according to random rules.
Yeah.
Yes. Maia's professional background includes experience as a crisis intervention counselor, a yoga teacher, actress, and health coach. So she's able to offer clients a full spectrum approach to solidifying their foundation and moving forward from a new perspective. She takes her clients off-road to find new answers that create inspired solutions and to help them break through into thriving in all areas, regardless of past hurdles. Fantastic. And we will go into the ways you can find Maia at the end here and work with her, et cetera, et cetera. So Maia, again, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. And I think it's also important to say that I just interviewed you for Dirt Road Less Traveled podcast episode. And you came on to set the stage with some historically accurate information. And then it was so phenomenal that we doubled the time, and it's going to be its own podcast episode. So come hear this incredible conversation where I am the interviewer of Dr. Annalisa Durr on Dirt Road Less Traveled.
That's right. And when does that go up?
That is probably going to go up. Literally, this has all happened within the last hour. I decided I have to get in touch with my assistant and say, stop the presses, because she was putting together graphics and show notes for the podcast where you were sharing the headline with another guest. But because our conversation was so good and we just decided to let it go a full hour, it's going to be its own episode. So 2 weeks, end of May.
Great. Well, anyway, everyone should go subscribe to Dirt Road Less Traveled,
obviously,
regardless. So yeah, then you'll be in the know when it's the know. Okay, here we go. So Maia has been on once before. This is her second time on. Hopefully this will be a recurring guest appearance. That is my hope. And today I wanted to invite Maia on to talk about creativity and how to just go forth and manifest and materialize your creative vision. And so Maia, let's just jump right in. You've talked to me about your "damn it, just do it" motto.
Start the damn project.
Start the damn project. There we go. So why don't you just jump in and kind of tell us about the project, what that means? I like to just riff and play. And the first thing that caught my attention that you just said about materialize, I think is the word that you used. And I love that, because as someone who is passionate about self-realization, my own, and helping other people get there, and the idea that that's even possible, that you have a true self you can reconnect to. I mean, the world would be a different place. Because I know you're on your path, and I just see how our conversations have changed, how the level of depth and comfort with self and improvisation has shifted over the decade plus that you and I've known each other. I see it certainly with myself, just generally how much I'm like, wait, we just recorded that last YouTube live here a couple of months ago. I already feel like a better version of myself from then. You know what I mean? It's like, but you don't get there unless you start expressing yourself, and then you can adjust, like, ooh, that wasn't me. You have to get out there and experiment and express. It can't be pure speculation. So the first episode of season 2 of Dirt Road Less Travel that comes out next week, May 18th, is called Start the Damn Project. But self-realization to me is about getting connected with your true self. Self-actualization is about actually putting who you really are into play in the world.
It's not theoretical. It's not speculation anymore. But when you use the word materialize, I love that because it's about concretizing something internal and making it real in material reality. And a lot of us who are on the spiritual path are like, oh, I'm so spiritually, cosmically connected. And then we really struggle in the day to day with making things happen. And then there are people who just make shit happen. They're like, well, I'm too busy. I have to go. Like the type A people who are, whether they're entrepreneurs or executives or mothers or whatever they're doing, artists, musicians, you can find type A people everywhere. They get things done, but their risk is not only burnout, but that they're just doing things that aren't actually of their true self. I'm saying all that to return to that word you used, materializing. I love it. You want to make sure that you are materializing if you're a spiritually oriented person. And that is something that holds a lot of spiritually oriented people back. Mm-hmm. And then if you are more of like a type A, like getting shit done in material reality, you might want to take a pause and make sure that what you're putting out there is actually aligned. And the big thing that really caught my attention with that word materialize is that you could so easily have used the word manifest. And I want to say, fuck manifesting. We're not talking about that. We're talking about you doing things, you doing your life's work out in the world.
You know what's interesting about that too? Because it's actually not that common for me to use the word materialize, especially outside of the context in which I typically would use it, which is to say that the word material, in its like ancient Latin form, mater, or material, I don't know. Basically, it's etymologically related to the word mother and like Mother Earth, mater. So it is like a feminine, divine feminine characteristic or quality that either we've, I think been taught to either suppress or maybe even just disconnect from the spiritual side.
That is so cool. I don't have a piece of paper near me, so I'm sending myself a text message that says, look at materialize versus manifest. I want to look up the etymologies of those two, because how interesting, wouldn't that be interesting? When we were doing our podcast interview just now, and you used a word with the word man in it. And I had just interrupted you. I had so many ahas as you were talking that I was like, don't, Maia, don't talk. But it made me want to look back just because of, and maybe etymologically it's not connected, but I felt like, well, man is in that word.
Like menstruation, because the word men is in menstruation.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I'm like, my notes are over there.
You know why I know that? Because every time I go to type the word menstruation into my phone, it like tries to autocorrect to men or men's.
Men are great. Men are better. Men are so good.
Yes.
Listen, I love men, but I do remember being 5 years old and being taunted by the father of, he was sort of a pseudo uncle. Mm-hmm. And I was the youngest. I was a little girl and I was trying to play with the boys. I was 5. So they were like 6, 7, 8, 9. And he literally picked me up, a 5-year-old little girl, and put me on the hood of a car. I couldn't get down and stood in front of me and said, boys are better than girls. Boys are better than girls. My Uncle Joe, one of my Uncle Joes, and one of my dad's best friends. And I became hysterical and my father had to take me home. And I don't know if anybody ever talked to me about that, but I'm feeling like a deep welling of shame as I remember that, because I really believed, and I don't believe it anymore. So, but it's something you and I talk about a lot, that internalization of being a woman, you're lesser than.
Yeah, because it is taught to us in so many overt or not overt ways as well, subvert ways.
It's just, that was pretty overt.
Absolutely. But,
yeah. But so I, that's that. I'm curious to look at too, those ways. I think too, there are a lot of ways where we're always looking outside ourselves, like manifesting or materializing, like we don't have the power inside ourselves to make something happen. And also that there are right things to make happen, that you can't just trust, like, well, I have this thing I want to just create as a poem or a dance or a political attitude or an opinion or a whatever the hell it is. It's like, whoo, let me stop myself. We probably don't even notice when we're stopping ourselves. But materializing, it's like, I'm not manifesting and then God or the universe is showing me that I'm worthy of this thing coming to me and that I'm high vibe enough. And it's like, again, that just is so fucking poisonous. It makes me so angry. Not that we shouldn't be high vibe and heal all our trauma. I'm for that. I've been doing that. It's amazing. But this idea that when I do, then I'll be given the goods, the law of attraction. And if I'm not, then there's still something wrong with me. I'm still bad and wrong. That's, I think, what people are taking away from all this law of attraction and manifesting. But this idea of materializing, I'm choosing to put into material reality my own creative vision, is a level of ownership that I think a lot of women specifically try to avoid.
Right. And you're drawing it forth from within yourself. It's coming from you. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do I think I am? How dare I? Seriously, though, I think that's that level of questioning is something that we all wind up confronting, which is one reason why we like to speculate and not start, because we're like, let me just arrange/control everything and like look over my shoulder and look around at what everybody else is doing and what's acceptable so that it's fully safe before I step out there. Right. But what I'm talking about is forget that. Just start doing the thing, find your own unique way, your own voice. And just like, I think we need to bring a new way of being creative into the world.
Yeah. So what are some of those ways?
Just start the damn project. I don't know.
Just start the damn project.
Then you will know once you start it. Like I had this client once she was really stuck. Like she was single. She wanted to lose some weight. She wanted to switch careers. She wanted to move. She wanted to make more money, all of this in her late 50s. And I was just getting this feeling, and she was getting the same feeling, that she needed to do something to get out of her head, to get out of her own way. And she told me at one point that she had all of these painting supplies. She lived alone. She had all these painting supplies on her kitchen table, like a canvas, paints, brushes, and she hadn't painted anything. I was like, I want to talk to you after you've painted something. She was like, well, but now's not the right time. I'm like, no. We've had the same session 6 times running. Like, go paint something. And then I want to talk to you afterwards. And what wound up happening was she was so blocked. And she was like, well, but what's the point of painting? It's not going to make me money. And I was like, whose voice are you hearing in your head as you say that? Because she was like a massage therapist. It wasn't exactly like she was some high-powered executive who'd been focused on money. She was like, oh, that's my dad's voice in my head. Right. And so I don't know what you're going to express, or I don't know what new way of being creative is until everybody starts doing it and we start comparing notes or talking about it. Right. So that's maybe my contribution is just start the damn project. Right. That's what I do.
And I can say Journey to the Goddess TV is a product of that. Me being like, getting to this point where I was just like, how am I gonna blah, 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 and the travel show, and I want to do this and that. And then like in a really dark hour, it was like, just do it, just start it, just start building it, and you will figure it out. Right. And then the same thing with some of these goddess performance art pieces I've done. It was like, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but part of just the inspiration of like going on the travel itself to the location, stepping on the land, and all of a sudden I knew what I was going to do. That happened to me at least 2 times.
Do you want to, for my 50th birthday, when you're out here, do some kind of a performance art project or piece at my birthday party, which is ladies only? Yeah, there's going to be land, there's a sauna, there's a dock, as we could use that as a stage. You could be somewhere in the woods. Just think about that. I would love to have one of your rituals happen here on the property.
Oh, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. Okay, I will. I'm going to let that percolate so that it can materialize.
Okay, let me just say this, people. Okay, I'm giving myself chills. That's how you do it. Yeah. I had an idea. I'm like, oh, should I wait and talk to Anna about this privately later? No, I just said it out loud. Now we're bouncing it. Now we materialized it because we said it into words, and now it's with you. That's how you start.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I love that co-creative element too. I mean, earlier we were talking about matriarchal values, feminine values, and that's actually it, is the kind of co-collaborative, creative, dialogical, in the moment flow of ideas. That is the feminine way. And I want to say this too, because I get a little bit
cringy around the word co-creative or even collaborative. I was talking to someone recently. I know I have a friend who was also a client. And then there was someone else. I don't remember who it is now. I think somebody in that realm too, like friend, colleague, client. There's a lot of overlap in my world. And she was saying like, well, you know, that's why collaboration is the way to do things. And I was like, I hate collaboration. I don't hate collaboration, but I like doing my own thing. I like having conversations. I like reading books. I like listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, like having great friendships like this, and bouncing ideas. But there are some people who genuinely work better in a collaboration. But if you, speaking to the person listening to this, if you are more of an introvert, you don't have to do it in the most obvious version of what you just said. Like go meet people, you know what I mean? You don't have to go to a co-working space or join a community. You can. And I love this where you can have those conversations with yourself. Like in the morning, I'll get up, I'll start listening to podcasts as I make my morning smoothie. And then I start having ideas. And then maybe I send you a message, leave you a voice memo or read a book or something. And then, so we can be in those more obvious, like co-creative, collaborative, like, hey, Anna, come out for my birthday. I've got land. Will you do this? And then, but now you're going to be spinning off in your own world, digesting, creating with ideas. And then maybe you'll ask me a question to get clarity about what's available. And then maybe I'll have an idea and share, who knows? So, but you can also be in that kind of dialogue and co-creative, collaborative experience with yourself and the different facets of yourself.
Right. And also like that kind of collaborative space or energy isn't necessarily just between people. It can be in the environment, right? Like when I went to do this performance art pieces, it was literally feet on the land in Greece, where the whole idea it was like the goddess of Greece was speaking to me through putting my feet on the ground. So I think as well that we blow open our idea of what collaboration means, you know, like you're talking about collaborating with the different facets of your personality, right? I mean, and goddess only knows like how many other layers of, you know, spiritual collaborative connection is, you know, happening. So I guess the point would be too, that it's not even just relegated to, you know, human to human.
No, you actually just brilliant that you said that, because you just reminded me of an experience I had a few weeks ago where in the middle of the day, I took a break, I took the cat and we went for a walk. There's a lot of land here. There are these paths through woods and fields. And I was just strolling through this stand of pine trees and I love it back there. It was that part of the land used to be the driveway that led to the main road. It's about a quarter of a mile long. And I used to walk to school from kindergarten on. So age 5, I'd be walking at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning down the road over, there was a stone arched bridge over a stream. It washed out in either Irene or Sandy 10 years ago or so. But somebody's grandfather built it in 1928. And just this, I would just be walking there. So I have all these beautiful memories of that land. And I'm living in the house that I grew up in, that my parents built and that I moved back to a few years ago that I inherited. So being back on the land, being back in the house, there's a lot of layers of memory there as well. So I was walking, oh my God, I'm getting such a bump of energy right now. I was walking through there with the cat, but here's what happened after I moved back. We had always let the snowmobile club, like the local snowmobilers, come through the back of the land, and they just go through, like my mom said, we used to let them do that because it would tamp down the snow in this one single track of a snowmobile track that we could cross country ski on. Like back in the 80s, that's what she and my dad liked to do on the land. And that's like, okay, we can be nice to the neighbors. Sure. Snowmobile in the middle of the night, and we'll cross country ski in the afternoons. But what's happened in recent years is that the snowmobilers have been going rogue all over the land, and snowmobiles are getting louder. There's more people doing it. But when I moved back here, I thought I'd be here temporarily, and my siblings and my family have this history of, snowmobile here. So one of the local club members came to us and said, could we move the trail? We said, yes, all of this. And then 3 years went by, and he and his crew just showed up one day and did things to my land that I did not give permission for them to do. And so there are places that I walk on the land where I get very angry at them and at myself for allowing it to happen, because I saw them here that day, but I didn't stop them. They blindsided me, and I didn't have the nerve to step out and talk to them. So I'm in this stand of trees, and what they did was, this is old farmland from hundreds of years ago. There are stone walls everywhere. So they put in this bridge very badly, so it keeps flooding in this little stream that it did not used to. And they took out a footbridge that we'd had there, beautiful footbridge that my boyfriend and his son had built. So that's gone. And then they took down multiple stone walls, and they dug up earth, and they just put like ramps sort of so they could snowmobile everywhere. And they hammered like signs like stop, go left, rise, dip, reflectors, orange reflectors, hammered them into trees everywhere. This all happened overnight. I had no clue. I went down my driveway one night to go out to dinner, and I was like, what's all this reflection? And in that grove of trees, they just took a chainsaw and cut, these are pine trees that are like 40 years old. And they just cut boughs off, just like one side of every pine tree, and just left piles of boughs everywhere. So I walk there in this beautiful place, and this rage overcomes me, as it always does. But I stood up to them, and it took a lot of conversations, and wow, they did not hear me. And my sister was saying, like, I don't want to tell them not to ride on the land because it's the good old boys club. And I don't want to piss off the local boys. These are all our neighbors, people we went to high school with, local farmers, and right. And I was scared to say no to them. And Mike is like, are you kidding? He's like, are you shitting me? It's Mike. He's like, if it were me, I would go to their house and pound on the door and be like, do not ever come on my land again. So he wound up putting.
You should do that, Mike. Yes, please.
Right. Well, but here's what's interesting about it in terms of starting the damn project. There's a level of personal evolution that can happen. So there's a few things that I want to speak to here. One is you're going to be scared. You're always going to be scared until you get to the place where you get connected to that flow of creativity and you start to trust it and yourself. I also had a former cop newly moved in, and he dropped by my sister's house, which is close here. And he was like, what the fuck is going on with these snowmobilers? And he knows all these guys, like they're his drinking buddies at the local bar. And he was like, this is crazy. He's like, I don't go ride on your land. Like, what is this? He had just bought property here, and all of a sudden snowmobilers and four-wheelers are coming through his backyard. And he's like, first of all, I have a rescue German Shepherd who I can't be responsible for if you ride through my backyard. I've got kids. What if this dog goes to protect? So that really helped me see that somebody who's one of those good old boys did not like that they were riding. So all of this led to, there were sleepless nights of helpless feeling rage and feeling like I did not step up and steward my land. I have said no. We had some trespassers this winter. Mike put up gates everywhere, which is also absurd, but this is sometimes how it goes. Sometimes things have to get ugly and painful and frightening, and you have to go against the grain of the local culture. I posted in the local Facebook group, like there were 63 people in my high school graduating class. So just to give you a sense of, I'm from a small town, America. And I posted I'm sitting in my office and I'm hearing these snowmobiles. And so I posted what can we do, people, about the noise of snowmobiling? This is a problem. I also did a lot of research. This is a problem across the United States and Canada. It's not like Maia Wilde is hypersensitive to sound and stewarding her land. Very true. Yes. And if you do the research, there's this forever wild precept in the Adirondacks that they're like, these trails have gotten wider, that they violated. Like there's some shit going down on the North American continent with snowmobilers. But I posted in a local group, and a friend of mine, people started messaging me privately because they're all scared, because the post, the last time I heard, there were over 200 comments on it. Right.
Yeah.
There's sometimes I go viral. Never when I want.
It's funny that you use the word viral, because I just keep hearing in my head, these people are parasites. It's so parasitic what they're doing.
You're so right. And my neighbor keeps saying, like, Maia, come down. If you ride snowmobiles, I'll take you for a ride. You'll think you'll find it fun. I'm like, hell yeah, that's fun. Are you kidding? Of course it's fun. Sure. But I also want to say to him, why don't you bring your maybe school-age children up here and let's go snowshoeing together and listen to the silence of the forest together. Because I'll go out for walks in the winter and they're not on my land anymore, but for 90 minutes, I'll be snowshoeing and just hearing like that, right? So there's a different interpretation. There's, and I do believe that there is a way for us to mutually coexist on this land. They refused to talk to me about it. They are not willing to be in conversation with me about it. So this is to give you a backstory for what I actually want to say is a few weeks ago, I'm in that grove and that rage came over me. And I walked out onto the driveway and I just stood there and I had like these series of emotions and visions come over me where it was like past lives, the ancestors of the land. My mother saying that when they first bulldozed this old farmland to build this house on it, she walked up here from where they were living in a barn down the road, a converted barn down the road. She walked up here pregnant with me one night at dusk and there were these dancing lights on the ground. Like, this is a potent Native American. They're here.
Right.
I've had experiences walking in the woods. Once I got lost in the woods for like 3.5 hours. Like my dad's driving around looking for me. I made it back, but it was like I visited the past. It was raining. I was in the woods. There's pine needles. I suddenly became like this young Native American man on the hunt, one with the forest. Like there were these kinds of experiences. So there I was a few weeks ago on the driveway, walking, having this communing experience with the woods, memories of my young childhood, the rage over like the rape and violation of my land, and the fact that I didn't stand up for myself and I didn't steward my land. And then I'm out on the driveway and I'm going, Maya, you have to manage this because I'm not going to be able to sleep, work, do anything. And then all these visions came through me and I came home and I wrote it all down.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Because I've been writing. And when I write, what I'm finding is, God, one of the next podcast episodes is called A State of Flow. It's like, when do you get into that flow state where things are coming through you? Hours could go by. You feel totally fulfilled. Doesn't matter if you're hungry, somebody just died, you have no money, you're like fulfilled. And so I came home and I wrote about it. And there was a part of me after when I was because I write longhand, which is another great way to get connected to flow and be creative. It felt so amazing. But then the editor comes in later. It's very interesting. I'll see what I do with it. But this is, again, the fear came back again on the other side where I'm like, I'm going to be talking about like the ancestors of the land and Native Americans. And, I heard something said once about like cultural appropriation. And you do see people out there being idiots who are just like completely unknowledgeable. And I was thinking, could I be perceived that way? I literally had a vision. I literally am communing with the land. I got this message again, like you are here to steward the land. And that's what I was writing about. So I had a little fear about, could I be canceled? Will they want to edit? Censor Maya. And I'm like, you can't censor a vision. What the fuck, man? But I had that fear, but you have to be able to step away when you're in the creative process. Like your editor, compartmentalize that person away. Exactly. And then I was remembering what I know is like, do I know that, is this vision true? Yes. Do I believe in reincarnation, that I could have been a Native American or a raping, pillaging white man? Yes. Right. So I don't want to get too attached to my own identity, but I do want to be like a channel that this information comes through. And I think you need to start trusting that when you start being in the creative process, not only does it feel great to get into flow and you start producing things, you start to trust and you start to disidentify from your human self. Also, this is just sort of a neat little aside. I don't remember where I saw this, but this idea that all of the people who are hollering like cultural appropriation, none of the cultures that are being appropriated believe that there's no such thing as cultural. They're like, take it. It's like Manhattan. It doesn't belong to us. Like there's nothing to appropriate here. Right, so right. I throw that out there.
Right. We can go down the cultural appropriation road for sure. Sometimes I thought, I danced flamenco. That was originally a dance done by, the Romani gypsy people but has so many other cultural influence, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, African influence. Now there's New World influence that came, they came here, went back, so it's like, am I culturally appropriating Romani culture every time I dance flamenco? I mean,
Or are we just integrating all of the multifacetedness of humanity and shared culture? And
right. Yes. And the final thing I want to say about that is there are definitely situations in which like certain corporations, for example, will take specific traditional Native American like what is that called? A dream catcher, for example, and then like resell it for, in those kind of situations in which there's monetary gain.
commodification.
Yeah. That's really problematic. But anyway.
That's just gross. Like that's like the grossness of commercial capitalism right there.
Yeah, that happens to everything and everyone, right? There's like so much of
nothing sacred.
Women's lives that gets commodified and capitalized and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I don't want to go down that road, and I can feel myself starting to go down to that road. So let's bring it back for a second. There was a point that we had touched on, or I'd wanted to touch on and bring into the conversation, which is how can you tell the difference between like percolating versus just stalling?
Procrastination.
Yeah, exactly.
First of all, this percolating versus procrastination is an idea that I heard somebody say about 10 years ago, and I really liked it because back then I wasn't getting anything done. I was very, very stuck and I was frustrated with myself. And I really just felt like I can't make anything happen. I can't complete projects. That was a really big struggle of mine. So I think when there's a feeling of struggle, something's up. It's hard to, now, again, we all have these patterns, and it doesn't mean, you can't really tell sometimes. Let me just say that, but you have to find out on your own. I've started to notice there's this, it's very subtle, like this slight constriction, like in my belly. When let's say, okay, so yesterday I was working on my marketing catalog. I have a lot of social media posts, working with hashtags, and just trying to put together like ideal client avatar, all of that really like hardcore sort of business coaching style stuff. And that has been a real struggle of mine. And so I've been working really hard to sit down and make some things happen there. And so the first thing that you'll notice when you're doing something that causes a lot of, whether it's anxiety, I had a client recently who said that she was on a Zoom conference call at work. She works for a well-known corporation, and she had a panic attack to where she had to mute herself and like basically leave the meeting. And she said, I think I have PTSD from like this job and working with these colleagues and the amount of pressure from the job on looking good. And she's in communications, and also her internal pressure. And so that's the other thing, like all of your shit will come up so the first thing is you step out, and then all of your old traumas, all of your beliefs around like, I shouldn't, I'm going to be killed, I'll be burned at the stake, I died in 20 past lives for this. You know what I mean? Like all of that. So that is the first thing. Like, so this is one of the reasons though, why you have to step out, or you will never heal your past life stuff, your early childhood traumas. You're going to stay stuck to all of the limiting beliefs from your childhood, all of that. So you need to step out and just know that you're going to get hit by this wave at some point, which will show you what your shit is that is now up for you to deal with. So then you need to go deal with that.
Right.
However that is. So that's one reason why stepping out is really great, because it'll showcase like, oh, this is all my stuff. Then the place that I'm at now, I have worked through so much of that. So I sat down yesterday and I started writing, and in the middle of really having a lot of flow and success and being creative and playful and organized, like organizing my ideas all on these scribbled pieces of paper, sometimes in the middle of the night, and then I'm typing them up into a document for my marketing catalog. All of a sudden I typed up one and I got this clenching feeling in my belly. And I was like, and then more stuff rushed to the surface where I was like, who do I think I am putting it out there? I'm doing it wrong, like all of this. And so what did I do? I stepped away from the project. I stepped away from my desk. I went outside. It's beautiful spring weather here in upstate New York. And I was outside and I was like having a conversation with myself, and that clenched feeling. I've had enough success now that I know when something feels right, like I want to put my name on this, and I can see too, because people respond to it. And that's part of the collaboration. When you put it out, not necessarily in front of your like Aunt Trudy or, you know, your brother or whoever might be a naysayer in your life, or somebody who's not your real audience. But when you put it in front of the right people, you get the right kind of feedback. And so I have had enough of that to know, like, this is what it feels like to me. And people have confirmed that for me when it's right. So this clenching feeling, what is it? And I was like, I don't know. But Maia, I said this out loud to myself, standing barefoot in the sunshine with my cat. Like, I promise you, Maia, I am not going to make you put anything out there that gives you that clenching feeling. And we're going to work through this. You get to be playful. You get to, and you will know, now I can trust myself. And it's a process and it's taken me years. But to be able to say to myself, I'm not going to make you do something, because there's, again, that nuance between like risk and putting yourself out there for the first time and just, I'm going to just do it. And it's not aligned. And again, you only figure this out by doing it. But so I think I can start to recognize, oh, like, to use that example, that social media post is not ready. I need to percolate on it more. I'm not procrastinating because I'm digesting it, thinking about it, rewriting it, and dealing with the experience that it gives me inside myself. When I interact with that post, it gives me a lived experience that's not right. It's kind of like, let's say you were going to go hook up with someone and you're like, okay, what does that mean? That's a no of some kind. Do I not know him well enough? Am I preoccupied with something else? Am I self-conscious about something with my body? Am I cheating on someone? You know what I mean? Like, you need to figure out what's happening in that moment.
Right.
And so that, I think you have to start being able to read your own internal messages to figure out what's procrastination, which feels terrible and like you're dying and you want to avoid it and run screaming, or you shut down and you want to hide from it, versus percolating, which is like, ooh, that doesn't feel right. Or like, oh, this is exciting, I'm looking forward to it, but it's not quite ready to go yet.
Right.
Does that give you something of an answer?
Yes. And something came up for me, which I think goes along with exactly what you just said. And that is, I've noticed for myself that often I will take action on something when instead I should have just allowed it to keep percolating. Like, I keep thinking back to my 8-week trip to Europe back in 2019 before the pandemic. And I was so angry when I got to Italy, and it was like, clearly something wasn't working for me. And I thought that the answer would be going to Europe. And at the end of the day, when I got to Greece for the last 3 weeks, it was like something magical happened. And I was kind of like, why didn't I just come here for the whole time? But there's something in that for me where I'm seeing that sometimes I take action in such an extreme way that it prevents me from actually feeling. Then I don't have to feel whatever those feelings are. But somehow they still try to pop up for me because they're, it's still like, I'm here, we need to deal with it. Like, even if you travel far, far away, wherever you go, there you are.
Well, and that's what I always think about. Like, yes, wherever you go, there you are. That's why you want to deal with all of your stuff. And that's what self-realization is about. So that wherever you go, like, there you are. Like, this is great. But because there's also, once you've dealt with your stuff, there is still the power of place. And there are right places, people, situations, work. There are right things for each of us. And they're not the same. I have this one client who's always like, but why? Why is it that everybody else at this job that she hates and is burning out over and working way too much doing and is a real struggle for her? Why is everybody else fine? And I'm like, I think that's the wrong question. But because maybe they're not. I talk to people a lot and I know what's happening behind the scenes. And I know a lot of people are not fine. Or maybe they are, but that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you that you're not. It means that you have some stuff you need to deal with. And this is probably not the right work situation for you.
Right.
So the quicker you're like, the more you're able to just stay with yourself. I was talking about holding your feet to the fire. You can do it for a split second. Like, ooh, I don't feel right. Okay, good. Gonna go do other things. And then I'll return to that. Maybe 2 minutes, you keep increasing your time there. And each time you kind of dip in, you get another little hint of information and eventually it accrues and you have an aha. Great. but at a certain point, you actually do heal so that it's like really, really quick. You can do it in a day or an instant. And then there you are in Italy and you're like, I'm angry. I'm just going to Greece. That's what I need to do. There's different tools like muscle testing or using the pendulum, right? That people have to be able to check in. Is this in my best interest to do? Is it in my best interest to stay? I'm in a situation now where it's in my best interest to stay. Is it all dreamy like somebody's vision board? No. But on the one hand, in many ways, I really love it. And I'm learning how to stay. And sometimes you need to learn how to go. So yeah, I think that's, you get quicker with it. And I'm reminded of, I woke up angry a couple of days this week. And I really just had to stay with myself and then make myself do things. Like I'm like, no, you're not skipping your meditation. You're not skipping your workout. You're not skipping your smoothie. And you're not skipping your shower. Like I made myself march straight through. And then today, when we were doing my podcast interview and this, I was like, you're not skipping. I want to cut back on my caffeine. I'm like, today's not the day. Eat some chocolate. And we had an early, for me, call. And I was just like, get the chocolate in early, like get it in. Right. Yeah. But seriously, you want to support yourself in this and eat chocolate and enjoy your life too at the same time. So
that's right. And that's right. Because creativity, I don't want to use the word should, but can be a lot of fun.
Oh God, yes.
I think at least, in our very kind of productive oriented culture, like even creativity itself is commodified and mechanized and so controlled that, at least for me, a lot of times I lose that, the fun and the play of creativity, the joy.
Well, because we can get completely in that mindset. It like my client, well, how's this going to make me money to make it? I will say about her, I had asked her at one point, she hated the apartment she was living in. And I said, until what age? She was 55 at the time. I said, until what age are you willing to live in this apartment? Now you can ask yourself questions like this, right? Until what age are you willing to live in this apartment? She was like 56. And I was like, okay, we have until May of next year. Like I knew when her birthday was. And she moved to New Mexico. Like if you stay with it, you can resolve things and have a new relationship with yourself and with reality and with work and with creativity. And we have absorbed so much like this focus on money making or being overtly productive and being able to show people what we've done. But I have seen this with my writing specifically. I've known this for years, that if I was in a bad mood or feeling lonely or sad or something, if I just wrote a little poem, and I've read you some of my little poems and you were like, those are good. I'm like, right, aren't they? But at the time, I never showed anybody and it didn't matter because I captured my moment, the essence of that moment. I used my voice and I put it in a poem and there was some kind of resolution that occurred in me and it was healing and It was creative. And so now, a few years later, I'm in this place where, I know that sitting down to write is going to feel amazing.
Right. Right. I went back in my mind to these goddess menstrual art performance pieces. And in a way, it's that same thing. It's just a pure, in the moment kind of creative impulse that was for me, it's for the land, for the goddess, but it really wasn't for anybody else. And each time it's offered me immense healing. And I believe healing to the land and to that particular culture or the cultural mythology. So, and the beautiful thing, I think, really is that it wasn't for anybody else. I just did it for me,
And again, that goes against our culture.
Yeah.
Well, are you a published author? Are you right? Did somebody film this? Did you go viral on YouTube or TikTok now, I guess? But this idea of they don't want you to know that you can have this quietly satisfying life with yourself.
Right.
And with your own creativity. And I had this experience actually today after we completed our conversation for my podcast. We said, let's take a break. And you guys are welcome to go follow me on Instagram. I'm Maia Wilde 720. And you can see what I looked like before putting on my sexy animal print and my lipstick, because it was not like this when we did the podcast. And I went on Instagram and did a video because I was so overwhelmed with I felt full. I felt complete, like sated. I felt grateful. And as I was talking about it, and this is what comes from just starting the damn project. That's actually the name of that video. I just start the damn project, is that it creates, it's like, I see this with myself and many of my clients too, where it's like, I feel like we're walking around with like a plug. Like, can I plug it into you? Can I plug? It's like that children's book. Are you my mother? Somebody told me there's a book. Are you my husband? It's like, is it this? Is it money? Is it food? Is it like, but if you can, I like you're laughing. We can all relate. But if you can like plug yourself back into you and like the cosmos or God, goddess, creativity, the wellspring of life inside yourself, you're untouchable. And it's just an incredible experience. And so as I've been looking for like how to articulate what I do, I've been realizing that I help people reconnect to that impulse, right? That wild, free self, your true self, before your impulses got short-circuited by people telling you when you were little, now is not the time. Girls don't do that. It's messy, whatever it is. And if you can get back to that place, and really connect to your unique self and your unique voice, which doesn't have to be singing or writing. It can just be a way of being in the world and being present with your partner or your children or whatever with life. You start to fall in love with yourself and you start to fall in love with your life. And that was the feeling that I had after you and I, Anna, recorded the podcast that I wanted to share with people. Like, that's what's possible for you.
Wow.
All of us.
Wow. That's incredible. I mean, and thank you for sharing that was your, the feeling that arose for you at the completion of our podcast. And I felt pretty alive too. But we are kind of closing in on our, set time frame today. So I want to ask you if you have any last parting words of wisdom.
Start the damn project.
Period, the end. Or
whether that's personal evolution, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be an art project or a business project. Yes, start the damn project. You know what it is.
Just do it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Why don't you tell everybody how they can find you and work with you?
Beautiful. MaiaWilde.com. If you are interested in seeing taking this conversation further, you can click on the Work With Me tab. There's a short video and you can sign up for a free breakthrough conversation, which I also sometimes call a strategy session to figure out what's next. You'll figure out about working with me. But if it's not that, we'll give you a breakthrough. I like breakthrough conversation also because it's like the before conversation. And to find the way to get you to what's after. But if you're not quite ready for that level of engagement, listen to the podcast. I have some great guests. I don't know if I said this last time I was on your channel, but the greatest compliment I have ever gotten for the podcast is someone said to me that listening to me talk on these subjects opened up a part of her brain she didn't even know she had. And I'm all about, I want to help you get into a deeper conversation with yourself. So follow me anywhere on social media or those options as well.
Just gorgeous. And I will leave the links to your website, et cetera, in the YouTube text box to make it super easy for everybody at home.
And in 2 weeks, come check out the conversation that I have with Annalisa Durr on Dirt Road Less Traveled.
Yes, but you will be already signed up and subscribed to Dirt Road Less Traveled.
Yeah, it'll just come straight to you. You'll know all about it right away.
All right.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
It has been a pleasure. So thank you everybody at home. If you like this video, please hit like, please subscribe, please leave a comment. Let's keep the dialogue going.
Share it.
Let us know what you'd like Maia to speak on next time. If you have any questions, I'll share them with her and yeah, we'll just keep going. So yes, thank you. Ciao. See you.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao amore. Ciao. Ciao. Okay. Bye everybody.